Hello, everyone, and happy Cinco de Mayo. We hope that everyone is having a great day. Welcome to the Hit Sports Show live from the K.L.P studios here in Atlanta. This is the PlayGrid Sports Podcast presented by Amazon Music. Okay, let's get into it. So here's a wild stat to kick things off. The Cleveland Cavaliers are spending nearly $400 million this season, including luxury taxes, the highest in their franchise history. And yet they're still fighting to prove they can make it past the second round of the playoffs.
That's a staggering number, and it really sets the tone for what's at stake this postseason. It feels like every team left in the playoffs has something massive to prove, whether it's about their roster, their stars, or even their long-term direction.
Exactly. The Eastern Conference in particular is just chaos right now. You've got the Pistons, Cavs, Knicks, and Sixers all battling it out, and none of them were really considered finals favorites at the start of the season. But here they are, and the stakes for each of them couldn't be more different.
Let's start with the Pistons because their story is fascinating. J.B. Bickerstaff, their head coach, is going up against his former team, the Cavaliers. He was fired by Cleveland back in 2024, and now he's got a chance to knock them out of the playoffs. That's got to feel personal.
Oh, it's absolutely personal, and it's not just about Bickerstaff. This is a huge moment for the Pistons as a franchise. They haven't been to the Eastern Conference Finals in years, and if they can pull this off, it's a statement win. But if they lose, especially to the team that let Bickerstaff go, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
And then there's Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell's under so much pressure right now. He's been on 650-win teams between Cleveland and Utah, but he's never made it to the conference finals. That's a tough legacy to carry, especially when the team has gone all in to surround him with talent.
Right. And let's not forget James Harden. Adding him was supposed to be the move that got Cleveland over the hump. They've got the highest payroll in team history, and they've built this roster with the expectation of making a deep playoff run. If they can't even get past the second round, what does that say about the team's construction? And more importantly, what does it say about Mitchell as a leader?
It's a fair question. And then there's the Knicks. I feel like they're in such a unique position. Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns are playing with a sense of urgency we haven't seen before. This could be their best shot at making the finals, especially now that the Celtics are out of the way. But there's also that added pressure from ownership. Jim Dolan flat out said earlier this year that the Knicks should win the finals.
Yeah, and you know how New York is, the media, the fans, they're not going to let up. If the Knicks don't capitalize on this opportunity, it's going to be a disaster. And Towns in particular has a lot riding on this. He's got a massive contract, and if the Knicks don't make a deep run, you have to wonder if his long-term future with the team comes into question.
Speaking of pressure, let's talk about the Sixers. Joel Embiid and Paul George finally seem to be clicking, but this is a team that's been defined by playoff heartbreak. A comeback win against the Celtics was huge, but can they carry that momentum forward?
That's the big question. Daryl Morey put all his chips on the table with Embiid and George committing $400 million to those two guys. And for a while, it looked like that gamble might not pay off. Injuries, suspensions. It's been a rough couple of seasons, but now they've got a real shot. If they can make the finals, it validates everything Morey's been building. If not, it's going to be another off season of what ifs.
It's funny how the East feels so wide open, but at the same time, every team has so much to lose. And then there are the teams that didn't make it out of the first round: Denver, Boston, and Orlando. Let's start with Denver. What happened there?
Oh, man. Denver's loss to Minnesota was brutal, especially since the Timberwolves were missing key players like Anthony Edwards. For a team that was favored in the series, it raises a lot of questions about their roster construction. Peyton Watson's restricted free agency is going to be a big storyline this summer. Do they keep him? Do they let him walk? And can they really afford to keep avoiding the luxury tax?
That's the thing. They're already over the projected tax line for next season, and they've got depth issues around Nikola Jokic, plus they've traded away a lot of their future assets, like that unprotected 2032 first-round pick and the Michael Porter Jr. Cam Johnson deal. it feels like they're in a tough spot.
And then there's Boston. Losing to the Sixers after being up 3-1 has to sting, especially after such a strong regular season. But you look at their roster and it's clear they've got some holes to fill. Neemias Queta had a great season, but he struggled against Embiid in the playoffs. They need a more dominant presence inside if they want to contend.
Agreed. And their financial situation doesn't make it any easier. They've already shed a ton of payroll, but they don't have many tradable contracts left. It's going to be a challenge for Brad Stevens and the front office to make the necessary upgrades without breaking the bank.
Orlando's situation is a bit different. They look so promising early in their series against Detroit, but injuries and poor performances down the stretch cost them. And then they fired their coach, Jamal Mosley. Where does this team go from here?
It's tough because they've got talent, but the fit isn't quite right. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are both great players, but their styles clash. They're both ball-dominant forwards with iffy shooting, and it creates a lot of overlap. The Magic need to figure out how to make that partnership work, or they might have to consider some tough decisions down the line.
And then there's the money factor. The conference semifinals are loaded with players who are either heading into free agency or are due for big extensions. Austin Reeves, James Harden, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Duren. These guys all have a lot riding on how they perform in the playoffs.
Reeves is an interesting case. He's been great for the Lakers, but with Luka Doncic out, he's got a chance to really boost his value against the Thunder. The question is, who's going to pay him? The Lakers will want to keep him, but they might not have much competition in the market.
Harden's situation in Cleveland is fascinating, too. He's got a $42 million team option, but only $13 million of it is guaranteed. It sounds like both sides are interested in working out a new deal, but if the Cavs don't make a deep run, does that change the calculus?
And then there's Towns. He's got 2 years left on his deal, but the Knicks might look to extend him this summer. If they don't, you have to wonder if they'd consider trading him. It's a delicate balance because they've already got so much money tied up in other players.
Jalen Duren is another name to watch. He's heading into restricted free agency, and the Pistons will want to keep him. But if he makes an all-NBA team, he becomes super max eligible. That's a lot of money for a team that's already paying Cade Cunningham big bucks.
And then there's the Lakers-Thunder series. Without Luka, how competitive can the Lakers really be? The Thunder swept the season series, and they're coming off 3 straight first-round sweeps. It feels like it's their series to lose.
Yeah, the Lakers need Luka back if they want to have any chance. But even then, the Thunder are so deep and so well coached. It's hard to see anyone stopping them in the West except maybe the Spurs.
It's shaping up to be an incredible playoffs, though. The stakes are high, the storylines are compelling, and there's so much uncertainty. I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Same here. No matter what happens, it's going to be a postseason to remember. Okay, so here's something wild. Mike Trout, after years of battling injuries and setbacks, is not just back. He's leading the league in runs scored and walks, and his OPS is sitting at an eye-popping .983. It's like watching a superhero regain his powers.
That's exactly what it feels like, and what's so fascinating is how he's done it. This isn't just a story about raw talent, it's about reinvention, resilience, and a complete overhaul of how he approaches the game and his life.
Right, and it's not just about the numbers, though those are incredible. It's the journey back. Trout missed 382 games over 4 seasons. That's almost 2.5 years of baseball gone. For most players, that would be the end of the story. But for Trout, it's just the beginning of a new chapter.
And what a chapter it's shaping up to be. He's not just playing well, he's playing with a kind of joy and freedom that we haven't seen in years. Even Aaron Boone, the Yankees manager, said it. I saw Mike Trout, and that's high praise from someone who's watched him dominate for over a decade. And
it really is. And, you know, what struck me most was how intentional he's been about this comeback. He didn't just show up at spring training and hope for the best. He made real, tangible changes, dropping weight, revamping his workouts, hiring a nutritionist. He even changed how he thinks about the game.
That mental shift is huge. He talked about slowing down, about being more present in the moment. That's not something you hear a lot of athletes talk about, but it's so important. It's like he's found a way to enjoy the game again, to savor every moment, whether it's on the field or at home with his kids.
And that part about his kids really got me. His son, Beckham, asking him to play wiffle ball after a long day at the ballpark. It's such a simple human moment, but it says so much about where his priorities are now. He's not just a baseball player. He's a dad, a husband, a guy who's trying to make the most of every day.
And you can see how that mindset is translating onto the field. He's back in center field, where he feels most comfortable, and he's playing like the Trout of old. The guy who controls the strike zone, who's lethal at the plate, who makes everything look effortless.
That move back to center was huge for him. It's almost symbolic, isn't it? Like he's reclaiming his place, saying, I'm back and I'm ready to lead. And it's not just about comfort, it's about confidence. He's healthy, he's ready, and he's proving it every single game.
And let's not forget, this is a guy who's been with the Angels since 2011. His first 9 seasons were historic. 297 homers, 197 stolen bases, an OPS over 1.000, and 73.5 WAR. He was on a trajectory to be one of the greatest players of all time. And now, after everything he's been through, he's reminding us why.
And what's so impressive is how he's done it. He didn't just rely on talent. He put in the work. He changed his workout routine, focusing on activation rather than heavy lifting. He dropped 8 to 10 pounds, hired a nutritionist, and even set a goal to get his sprint speed back to 30 feet per second. And he's hit that mark a couple of times already.
That's not just impressive, it's inspiring. And it's not just about the physical changes either, it's about the mental and emotional growth. He's talked about how quickly time passes both in baseball and in life. He's trying to enjoy the moment, to be present, whether it's at the ballpark or at home with his family.
And you can see how much his teammates and even his opponents respect him. When he was struggling with injuries and his production dipped, guys like Matt Olson, Austin Riley, and Carlos Correa were still arguing that he belonged near the top of the rankings of the best players in the game. That says a lot about how he's viewed in the baseball world.
It really does. And now, with the way he's playing, he's proving them right. He's back to being one of the best players in the game. And he's doing it with a sense of joy and gratitude that's really refreshing to see.
It's a reminder, isn't it, that no matter how good you are, no matter how high you climb, there's always room to grow, to adapt, and to find new ways to enjoy the journey. Mike Trout is showing us all how it's done.
And it's not just a lesson for athletes, it's a lesson for all of us. Life throws curveballs, but it's how you respond that defines you. Trout could have let those injuries derail his career, but instead, he used them as an opportunity to grow, to change, and to come back stronger.
And now he's playing some of the best baseball of his career. He's leading by example, not just with his performance, but with his attitude and his approach to the game. It's inspiring to watch.
It really is, and it makes you wonder, what's next for Mike Trout? If he can keep this up, there's no telling what he might accomplish. But one thing's for sure, he's going to enjoy every minute of it, and so are we.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the PlayGrid Sports Podcast presented by Amazon Music. Okay, Sarah, did you know that the WNBA is celebrating its 30th season this year? 30 years of incredible basketball, groundbreaking athletes, and a league that's grown into a cultural force. That's what we're diving into today.
30 years is such a huge milestone. It's amazing to think about how far the league has come since its first season in 1997. And this season feels like it's going to be one for the books, with so many compelling storylines already unfolding.
Absolutely. And we have to start with the Las Vegas Aces. They're the defending champions, and they've been nothing short of dominant over the past few years. A'ja Wilson, their star player, is a 4-time MVP. 4 times. That's legendary status right there.
It really is. A'ja Wilson is one of those players who can completely take over a game. She's got that rare combination of skill, athleticism, and leadership. But as dominant as the Aces have been, the big question is whether they can win a 4th title in 5 years. That kind of sustained success is so rare in sports.
It really is. And it's one thing to dominate during the regular season, but to keep that level of intensity and focus through the playoffs year after year, it's a whole other challenge. Every team is going to be gunning for them, and they'll have to deal with the pressure of being the team to beat.
Exactly. And it's not just about talent. It's about staying healthy, maintaining chemistry, and handling the mental grind of trying to repeat as champions. But if any team can do it, it's the Aces. They've got such a deep roster and a winning culture.
They really do. But let's talk about another team that's generating a lot of buzz, the New York Liberty. With stars like Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, their potential is sky high. And then you add in Satu Sabali, who gives them even more depth. It's almost unfair how stacked they are.
Totally. And what's fascinating is that they're under new leadership this season with coach Chris DeMarco. Whenever a team brings in a new coach, it's always a bit of a wild card. DeMarco's system and how quickly the players adapt to it will be key to their success.
Absolutely. And while they have all of this talent, the challenge will be getting everyone on the same page. Chemistry takes time to build, especially with new players and a new coach. But if they can figure it out, they're going to be a nightmare for opposing teams.
No doubt. And speaking of teams with potential, the Atlanta Dream are another one to watch. They had a strong regular season last year, but the big question is whether they can take that next step and make a deep playoff run.
Exactly. And while Breonna Jones's injury is definitely a concern, they've got some real strengths to lean on. Their rebounding is elite, and the addition of Angel Reese could be a game changer. She's such a dynamic player who can impact the game in so many ways.
She really is. And I think the Dream are one of those teams that could surprise a lot of people. They've got the talent, and if they can stay healthy and put it all together, they could make some noise in the playoffs.
I think so too. Another team that's looking to make a leap this season is the Indiana Fever. They've got a strong backcourt with Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark, and they seem really focused on improving their defense.
Yeah, and I love that they're setting high goals for themselves. Talking about a championship might seem ambitious, but you need that kind of mindset to compete at the highest level. And with players like Caitlin Clark, who's already proven she can perform on the big stage, they've got a solid foundation to build on.
Absolutely, and defense is such a key part of winning in this league. If they can tighten things up on that end, they'll be a tough team to beat. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the Los Angeles Sparks. They've missed the playoffs for 5 straight seasons, which is pretty shocking for a franchise with their history.
It really is. But they've made some big moves this offseason, bringing in players like Kelsey Plum and Nneka Ogwumike. I think they're finally on the right track. Kelsey Plum is such a dynamic scorer, and Nneka brings that veteran leadership that every team needs.
For sure, and sometimes all it takes is the right mix of players to turn things around. The Sparks have a lot to prove this season, but I think they've got the pieces to be competitive again.
I think so too. And speaking of teams in transition, the Dallas Wings are another one to keep an eye on. They've got some exciting young talent like Paige Buchers and Azzi Fudd, but they're coming off a disappointing season.
Yeah, they're definitely in a rebuilding phase, but the potential is there. Paige Buchers and Azzi Fudd are both phenomenal players, and if they can develop together, they could form one of the best backcourts in the league. It's just going to take some time.
Exactly. Rebuilding is never easy, but if the Wings can be patient and focus on player development, they could be really good in a few years. Now, let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury. They've lost some key players, but they still have Alyssa Thomas, who's one of the most versatile players in the league.
Alyssa Thomas is incredible. Her ability to impact the game in so many different ways is unmatched. But losing key players is always tough, and it'll be interesting to see how the Mercury adapt this season.
Definitely. And then there's the Minnesota Lynx. They're dealing with some injuries, but they've got a strong coaching staff and a history of success. I wouldn't count them out just yet.
Me neither. The Lynx have always been a resilient team, and I think their coaching staff will find a way to maximise the talent they have. Making the playoffs is definitely within reach for them.
Agreed. Now, the Chicago Sky are in a bit of a transition. They've brought in some new players and are looking to improve their scoring and defense after a disappointing season.
Yeah, it's a fresh start for the Sky. Change can be a good thing, and sometimes a new mix of players is exactly what a team needs to turn things around. I'm curious to see how they perform.
Same here. And speaking of new teams, the Golden State Valkyries are coming off a successful inaugural season. They've built their identity around defense, but they do have some size concerns to address.
True, but for a new team, they've done really well. Building a strong defensive identity is a smart move, especially in a league where scoring is so high. If they can address their size issues, they'll be even more competitive.
Absolutely. And then there's the Washington Mystics, who are in a rebuilding phase. They're focusing on developing young talent like Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen.
I like that approach. Rebuilding is never easy, but investing in young talent is the way to go. Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen have a lot of potential, and I think they'll be fun to watch as they grow.
Totally. And what about the Toronto Tempo? They're a new franchise, and they're focusing on their guard group under coach Sandy Brondello. It's always exciting to see how a new team establishes itself.
It is. And with a coach like Sandy Brondello, they're in good hands. Building around a strong guard group is a smart strategy, especially in today's game where guard play is so crucial.
For sure. The Connecticut Sun are also in an interesting spot. They're committed to a youth movement as they prepare for relocation.
Yeah, it's a transitional period for them, but focusing on youth is a good way to set themselves up for the future. Change can be challenging, but it's also an opportunity.
Absolutely. And then there's the Seattle Storm, who are rebuilding after significant roster changes. They're relying on young talents like Dominique Malonga.
Dominique Malonga is such an exciting prospect. The Storm are clearly in a rebuilding phase, but with young players like her, the future looks bright.
Agreed. And finally, the Portland Fire are back as an expansion team. They've got some challenges ahead, especially in establishing a scoring identity and implementing a new offensive system.
It's always tough for expansion teams, but the Fire have a clean slate to work with. If they can figure out their offense, they could surprise some people.
Definitely. It's shaping up to be an incredible season. Every team has its own unique story, and that's what makes the WNBA so special.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
Did you know that Jose Mourinho, one of the most polarizing figures in football, could be on the verge of returning to Real Madrid? It's been over a decade since his first stint, and the idea of him coming back feels like revisiting a blockbuster movie sequel, one that's equal parts thrilling and chaotic.
That's such a great way to put it. Mourinho's name alone stirs up so much debate, and now with Real Madrid in a bit of a crisis, it's no wonder his potential return is dominating headlines. But what's fascinating is how this speculation has completely overshadowed the upcoming Clásico, which is usually the biggest event in La Liga.
Exactly. The Clásico is always a spectacle, but the fact that Mourinho's name is stealing the spotlight says a lot about his enduring influence. And let's not forget, his first stint at Madrid was defined by those epic clashes with Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. Those matches weren't just games. They were battles of philosophy, personality, and pride.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who can forget the 5-0 loss to Guardiola's Barcelona? That was a humiliation for Mourinho, but then he turned it around with that iconic Copa del Rey victory. And of course, there was the infamous por qué press conference. It's like Mourinho thrives on drama.
He really does. And that's part of what makes him so polarizing. On one hand, he's a master tactician who knows how to win. On the other hand, his methods can be so divisive and, frankly, exhausting. If he does return to Madrid, it's not just about what he brings tactically. It's about whether the club, the players, and the fans are ready for the kind of disruption he inevitably causes.
That's a great point. And let's be honest, Real Madrid is already dealing with enough disruption as it is. They've had injuries, a lack of preseason training, and now they're facing the possibility of a second season without a major trophy. Whoever takes over has to not only manage the team, but also manage the expectations of everyone involved.
and those expectations are sky high. Real Madrid isn't just any club. It's a club that demands excellence, that's built on a legacy of winning. When the team falls short of that, the backlash is fierce. Arbeloa's recent comments really drove that home. He talked about how Real Madrid was built on sweat, mud, sacrifice, not players in tuxedos.
That was such a striking statement. It's almost poetic, but it's also a direct challenge to the current squad. He's essentially saying, this isn't good enough. And you have to wonder how the players are taking that, especially coming from an interim coach.
It's risky, no doubt. But it also feels like Arbeloa is trying to lay the groundwork for whoever comes next. And that brings us back to Mourinho. Could he be the one to instill that sense of commitment and sacrifice? Or would his presence just amplify the existing tensions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? On paper, Mourinho has the qualities that could address some of Madrid's current issues. His charisma, his ability to impose a style of play, his man management skills when he's at his best, all of that could be what this team needs. But then there's the other side of Mourinho, the ego, the conflicts, the potential for chaos.
And chaos is the last thing Real Madrid needs right now. They need stability, a clear vision for the future. Mourinho has never been a long-term solution. He's more of a short-term fix, someone who can deliver immediate results but often leaves a trail of destruction in his wake.
That's true. And stability is exactly what Jorge Valdano was talking about. He's someone who understands the club inside and out, and his perspective is worth considering. He talks about the need for a long-term project, for a coach who can build something sustainable.
Valdano's comments really stood out to me. He said, "You don't achieve great things with some fairy magic, with the naive idea that someone will arrive, wield a magic wand, and the team is transformed." It's such a powerful statement, and it feels like a direct critique of the way Madrid has operated in recent years.
It does. And it's a reminder that Real Madrid needs more than just a big-name coach. They need a comprehensive plan to address their issues. Fitness, squad depth, tactics. It's not just about hiring someone like Mourinho, it's about building a sustainable future.
Exactly. But at the same time, you can see why Perez might be tempted to bring Mourinho back. They have a good relationship, a sense of unfinished business. And let's not forget, Mourinho has a proven track record of winning, even if his methods are controversial.
True. And Perez has been very vocal in defending Mourinho in the past. He's talked about the abuse Mourinho faced in Spain, about how he was misunderstood. That kind of loyalty is rare in football, especially at a club like Real Madrid where the managerial turnover is so high.
But loyalty can only take you so far. At the end of the day, this is a results-driven business. If Perez brings Mourinho back and it doesn't work out, the fallout could be catastrophic. For both of them, it's a huge gamble.
It is. But then again, Real Madrid is a club that thrives on big gambles. Signing Cristiano Ronaldo, bringing Zidane back as a coach, even Mourinho's first stint. These were all high-stakes moves that paid off in different ways. Maybe Perez sees this as another calculated risk.
Maybe. But there's also the question of whether Mourinho has really changed. Some people, like Nuno Luz, argue that he's older, calmer, more respected. Others, like Valdano, are more skeptical. They see him as a divisive figure who might do more harm than good.
And that's the dilemma, isn't it? On one hand, Mourinho has the charisma and the tactical acumen to turn things around. On the other hand, his history suggests that he might not be the right fit for a club that needs stability and a long-term vision.
It's such a complex situation, and whatever Perez decides, it's going to have ripple effects across La Liga and beyond. You know, if Mourinho returns, it'll be one of the biggest stories in football. If he doesn't, it'll still be fascinating to see who takes the reins and how they handle the pressure.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we have the Clásico to look forward to. No matter what's happening off the pitch when Barcelona and Real Madrid face off, it's always a spectacle. And with Barcelona on the brink of another title, the stakes couldn't be higher.
It's going to be a thrilling match, no doubt. And who knows? Maybe it'll provide some clarity about Real Madrid's future, or just add another layer to the drama.
Either way, it's a reminder of why we love football. The passion, the unpredictability, the stories, it's all there. And whether Mourinho returns or not, this saga is far from over.
Definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me in this deep dive into the world of Mourinho and Real Madrid.
My pleasure. Until next time.